Ilesanmi moved on in silence. A new marriage in Nigeria, no cameras, no rollout, no TLC announcement. At the same time, the franchise kept airing episodes like nothing changed. Loud drama on screen. Total quiet off it. That contrast is the rupture. Noise sells, silence controls. Something this big did not drift away. It vanished. No special episode, no statement, no goodbye scene. One story kept shouting. The other stopped existing. Before we go further, welcome. I am Sabrina, and this is TLC Drama Live. If you follow 90 Day Fiancé for truth beneath the edits, subscribe and stay close. Drop a comment while listening. Silence often hides the real plot. Michael's reported remarriage did not arrive with fanfare. No glossy photos, no social posts, no interview tour. A private choice, allegedly legal, grounded far from the show that shaped his public image. Meanwhile, the franchise stayed busy. Teasers rolled. Other couples fought. Time moved forward. The gap grew louder by staying empty. Here's the tension you feel. When something matters on reality TV, it gets framed. When it disappears, someone decided to stop framing it. Control enters right there. Who decides what counts as story? Who decides what fades out? Who stays visible? Who becomes an inconvenience? Viewers trained by years of spectacle read silence as guilt. Networks trained by lawyers read silence as protection. Those readings collide in this moment. No announcement leaves room for rumor. No footage invites theories. No timeline fuels distrust. All of it pushes attention away from process and toward people. Michael's exit looks clean because it avoids performance. Angela's presence stayed loud because performance fed the machine. That split matters. Quiet choices feel suspicious in a system built on noise. Loud reactions feel dangerous once risk shows up on the ledger. Ask yourself why the show kept moving while one marriage ended off-screen. That question changes everything you think you saw. Why did no episode close the loop? Why did no host ask the obvious question? Why did no preview tease closure? And why did this shift land now, after years of volatility paid off so well? This is not about romance. This is about authorship. Someone decided the ending would not be televised. Someone decided the silence would do the work. Someone benefited from that choice. So here is the question hanging in the air. Who gained the most once the noise stopped and the silence took over? Michael did not vanish overnight. On screen, the shift was gradual. Fewer scenes, shorter check-ins, delayed appearances, awkward gaps where a reaction should sit. Fans notice because absence feels loud on a show built on constant reaction. But what looks like mystery often starts as withdrawal. Public timelines support that read. Filming cycles moved forward while his participation thinned. Episodes carried tension without balance. Confessionals leaned heavy on one voice. That imbalance matters. Reality TV thrives on friction. When one side pulls back, producers fill space with whoever stays loud. Withdrawal does not mean weakness. It often means a limit got reached. Years of public scrutiny. Immigration stress playing out on camera. Online commentary never turning off. All pressure, no quiet. You do not need labels to understand the toll. Anyone under constant watch learns two options: perform harder or step away. Here is the question people skip. Why would someone trade visibility for privacy when visibility pays? Fame brings leverage, money, and attention. Privacy brings none of that. So why choose it? One answer sits in plain sight. Control. Privacy returns control to the person living the consequences. Silence gets framed as suspicious because the system trained us to expect confession. But silence can be practical. Contracts exist. Lawyers advise caution. Ongoing cases limit speech. Choosing not to speak can protect a future rather than hide a past. Moral judgments do not apply cleanly there. There is also a power angle. Staying quiet denies the show usable material. No quotes, no reaction clips, no edit. Silence breaks the feedback loop. It forces the narrative to move on without you. That choice costs attention. It also stops damage. Notice how the story keeps moving when one person refuses to perform. That pattern shows who truly needs the noise. Counterpoint matters here. Some viewers feel owed closure. They invested time. They watched seasons. Silence frustrates loyalty. That reaction makes sense. Yet closure on reality TV often serves production more than people. The clean ending rarely belongs to the one who suffered most. Everything changes once he goes home. Distance alters incentives. Cameras stop calling. Social media pressure drops. Family replaces audience. The American storyline loses urgency. Choices become local again. That shift explains the next turn far better than any rumor. What happened after he returned home? Did not start as scandal. It started as a reset. And reset scare systems built on continuity. Reports from Nigeria shifted the entire frame. Allegedly, Michael remarried under local law. Public sources describe a small ceremony. No press, no branded photos, no sponsored posts, no statements crafted for reaction. If true, the choice alone says more than any interview ever could. Contrast does the work here. Reality TV weddings sell through spectacle. Multiple cameras. Emotional beats planned in advance. Confessionals recorded after the fact to sharpen reactions. This one avoided all of it. No cameras means no performance. No hype means no audience management. No rollout means no negotiation with public opinion. People rush to label the move as betrayal. That reaction skips context. Betrayal assumes a shared stage. This marriage stepped off the stage entirely. An exit, not a provocation. A decision made in private does not owe drama to a public trained to expect it. Dignity is often misread as reward. It is not handed out. It is chosen. Choosing dignity costs attention. It trades validation for peace. That trade makes no sense inside fame culture, which sells the fantasy that visibility equals success. Years on this franchise prove otherwise. Visibility amplifies pressure. Success fades when control disappears. Look at the pattern. When relationships play out on screen, resolution serves the edit. When relationships move off screen, resolution serves the people living them. The second path feels unfair to viewers because it denies access. It also protects the future from becoming content. Ask why a private choice feels threatening inside a public franchise built on exposure. That discomfort reveals how conditioned the audience has become. Fair counterpoint belongs here. Public figures profit from attention. Viewers fuel the platform. Some accountability follows. Yet accountability does not require lifelong access. Participation has limits. Stepping away does not erase past seasons. It ends new ones. The timing matters. The reported marriage lands after prolonged silence, after reduced filming, after returning home. That sequence points toward closure, not escalation. It also closes a door production cannot reopen. No vows on camera, no follow-up special, no reunion reveal. Finality without spectacle. While one story chose quiet, another moved in the opposite direction. Attention did not disappear. It redirected. Noise does not vanish on this franchise. It finds the nearest amplifier. And the moment Michael stepped out, that amplifier turned toward the chaos, still willing to perform. That pivot sets the next rupture. Silence on one side, explosion on the other. Angela on screen never needed translation. Viewers saw raised voices, confrontations, walk-offs, threats delivered inches from faces. Those moments aired repeatedly across seasons and spin-offs. Nothing here relies on rumor. The footage exists. The reactions exist. The pattern played out in public. Escalation worked. Each blow-up pulled focus. Each reunion clash became a headline. Volatility did not hurt screen time. It multiplied it. When chaos drives engagement, chaos becomes currency. The louder the moment, the more central the character feels. Over time, the show trains behavior, not through orders, through reward. This is the performance trap. When intensity brings relevance, calm feels like disappearance. When reaction brings airtime, restraint feels like loss. No labels needed. Anyone can recognize the loop. Perform to stay visible. Stay visible to stay valuable. Angela leaned into that loop because it worked. Season after season reinforced it. Fans argued. Petitions circulated. Clips went viral. The machine kept rolling. From the outside, it looked like tolerance. From inside the system, it functioned as incentive. Here is the counterpoint people skip. Networks build characters through edits and story beats. People still live the fallout. Producers choose what airs. Cast members carry what follows them home. When escalation crosses from screen to set, consequences stop feeling abstract. Notice how years of rewarded behavior can turn into a liability overnight once risk enters the room. That switch explains the shock more than any rumor. Public incidents sharpened the concern. Arguments did not stay contained to storylines. Crew intervention aired. Other cast members backed away on camera. These moments were not subtle. They showed stress on the system itself. A franchise designed to manage drama still has limits. Another counterpoint deserves space. Viewers confuse encouragement with permission. Being allowed on screen does not equal approval. It means the show believes it can manage the fallout. That belief holds until it does not. The problem with performance traps is simple. They escalate until something breaks. The same behavior that once drove ratings becomes unpredictable under pressure. When unpredictability threatens safety, schedules, or insurance, control snaps back hard. Control does not slip during arguments. It slips when production cannot guarantee containment, when the show cannot shape the outcome, when raw footage creates risk instead of story. The moment control slipped did not look dramatic on television. It looked procedural. Filming paused. Decisions moved upward. And once that line was crossed, the story stopped belonging to the person who built it. What happens next depends on who the system chooses to protect when performance stops paying. The line was not crossed on camera for entertainment. It was crossed behind the scenes when filming stopped. Reports say production halted, not paused for story beats. Stopped because control broke. That difference matters. When a set shuts down, reasons are not emotional. They are procedural. Safety comes first. Crew protection matters more than footage. Insurance rules do not care about ratings. If risk spikes, cameras go dark. No debate. No spin. This is where reality TV stops feeling like TV. Liability enters the room. Once insurance flags a situation, everything changes. Producers stop asking how to shape the story. Lawyers start asking how to limit exposure. The shift is instant and cold. People hear meltdown and think drama. Production hears meltdown and thinks incident report. Witness statements. Raw footage review. Risk assessment. That process strips emotion out of the moment. What stays is documentation. This is the second where ratings lose power and safety wins without asking permission. Here is the inflection point. Years of volatility stayed manageable because it stayed contained. Once containment failed, the value flipped. What once drew viewers now threatened operations. That is not punishment. That is math. Viewers often assume someone gets fired for bad behavior. That framing misses how decisions actually happen. The question is not who yelled. The question is whether the environment stayed controllable. Once the answer turns no, the story ends fast. Notice the absence afterward. No dramatic episode closure. No reunion breakdown. No confrontation packaged for airtime. Silence replaced spectacle. That silence tells you how serious the review became. Cold systems do not announce themselves. They operate quietly. Contracts get checked. Clauses get highlighted. Risk gets ranked. Executives get briefed. What felt personal on screen becomes administrative off-it. This is the danger zone for any franchise built on chaos. The same intensity that kept viewers hooked now threatens the infrastructure. At that point, loyalty shifts upward. Networks protect the brand, not the character. The aftermath does not explode outward. It tightens inward. Information narrows. Access shrinks. Decisions get centralized. Editing choices change. Schedules adjust. The words viewers fear most are never spoken on camera. They sit in emails and meetings. Legal review. When lawyers enter, ratings step aside, not slowly, immediately. Contracts exist for this moment. Cast agreements include behavior clauses. Simple idea. If conduct creates risk, participation ends. Arbitration clauses keep disputes out of public court. Risk language matters more than fan reaction. Silence follows because speech creates exposure. Statements lock positions. Silence buys time. Viewers read quiet as guilt. Legal teams read quiet as discipline. Two different worlds colliding. One runs on reaction, the other runs on containment. This explains why public answers disappear right when curiosity peaks. Lawyers do not chase closure. They chase protection. Every word gets weighed. Every clip gets reviewed. Anything that increases risk gets cut. Not because someone wants to hide drama. Because someone wants to stop it from spreading. Re-editing plays a role here. Fans often assume edits rewrite history. Sometimes they do. Often they protect infrastructure. If footage creates liability, it gets shortened or removed. If a storyline raises questions the network cannot answer safely, it fades. Editing shifts from storytelling to risk management. Pay attention to what disappears, because absence often signals legal boundaries, not narrative failure. Counterpoint matters. Edits always happen. Every season trims reality. That truth makes suspicion easy. Yet not every cut equals cover-up. Sometimes a cut equals compliance. Insurance rules. Contract obligations. Workplace safety standards. None of these care about satisfying curiosity. Here is the reveal hidden in plain sight. The franchise did not stop. Episodes aired. Promos rolled. New conflicts filled the space. The machine moved forward without pause. That movement tells you the decision landed upstream. Once legal sign-off arrived, the show no longer needed the character to function. This is how ratings exit. Not through a public firing. Through momentum that no longer waits. Storylines get reassigned. Time slots fill. Attention redirects. Viewers barely notice until absence settles in. Silence then becomes structural, not a gap waiting for explanation. A choice reinforced by motion. The show keeps moving, the person does not. That asymmetry answers more questions than any statement ever could, and once the train leaves the station, re-entry stops being an option. Erasure sends a message louder than any press release. Promos shift. Mentions thin out. Group photos change. Cast interactions cool. None of this needs an announcement. In reality TV, distance speaks fluently. This pattern is not new. Other franchises have done it. Contestants disappear between seasons. Reunion invites never arrive. Digital teams stop engaging. It looks subtle to casual viewers. Industry people recognize the signal instantly. Access ended. Association carries risk. Silence protects the rest. Attention works like oxygen in this space. When it drops, panic follows. Not because fame feels nice, but because relevance pays bills. Losing airtime cuts income streams. Losing network backing chills brand deals. The drop feels physical. Viewers see erratic posting and louder takes. Those reactions look desperate from the outside. Inside, they reflect a sudden vacuum. Focus on behavior, not identity. Attempts to stay visible show up through comments, appearances at events, alliances with trending names. Public alignment becomes strategy. None of this proves motive. It shows adaptation. People respond to loss with motion. Watch how fast a spotlight withdrawal reshapes behavior. This shift reveals dependency more than intent. The hard question sits here. Was relevance tied to one relationship? Years of airtime centered on a single dynamic. Conflict fed continuity. When the relationship ended off-screen, the pipeline dried up. Without the shared story, solo relevance had to stand on its own. Fairness matters. Networks help build personas. Edits sharpen traits. Soundbites loop. Viewers reward extremes. Responsibility spreads across the system. No one acts alone. At the same time, consequences land unevenly. The person stays visible. The machine moves on. Industry freezeouts do not judge character. They manage exposure. Cast members notice and adjust. Silence protects future seasons. Distance lowers risk. That calculation does not ask who feels hurt. It asks what keeps production stable. This is the reversal worth holding. Blame feels satisfying. Responsibility feels accurate. Blame points at a person. Responsibility tracks incentives, edits, contracts, and reward loops. Mixing them confuses the lesson. Once you separate those ideas, the picture sharpens. Erasure was not random. It was instruction. The show taught a rule by enforcing it quietly, and quiet enforcement travels farther than any loud warning. The question moving forward is not who deserves what. It is whether the system learned anything before repeating the cycle with someone else. Zoom out, and the pattern sharpens. This franchise learned long ago what sells. Chaos drives clips. Confrontation fills recaps. Explosions turn into memes. Seasons get built around pressure because pressure keeps people watching. When tension pays, tolerance creeps in. What once shocked becomes expected. What once alarmed becomes routine. Tolerance does not stay neutral. Over time, it reads like endorsement. If behavior keeps airing, viewers assume approval. If confrontations keep returning, cast members read the reward. The system teaches without speaking. Do more of what keeps you central. Stay loud, stay reactive, stay valuable. That is where the system failed everyone. It failed the audience by selling extremes as entertainment without guardrails. It failed cast members by rewarding patterns that escalate. It failed crew by stretching containment thin. It failed itself by waiting until risk outweighed reward. Some claim the show changed overnight. That story feels neat. It also skips cause and effect. Systems rarely reform from insight alone. They shift when pressure forces a move. Legal exposure does that. Insurance does that. Crew safety does that. Ratings never lead reform. Risk does. If the rules only change after damage, the lesson arrived too late for someone already burned. Here is the counterpoint worth holding. Systems adapt only when forced. No franchise volunteers to reduce what works. Chaos worked. Until it did not. Once consequences threatened the structure, the response followed. Not because values shifted. Because survival demanded it. This reframes the silence. The lack of announcements. The quiet edits. The sudden distance. None of it proves moral clarity. It proves urgency. A system protecting itself looks calm from the outside. Inside, it moves fast and narrow. What does this mean for future seasons? Maybe less tolerance for volatility? Maybe clearer boundaries? Maybe new faces fill old roles? Or maybe the formula returns with minor tweaks once attention drifts. History supports caution. Incentives tend to reassert themselves. Viewers sense the instability. The absence of closure leaves a gap. Gaps invite speculation. Speculation fuels engagement. The machine knows this too. Silence creates buzz without liability. That tactic keeps options open. So uncertainty hangs over what comes next. Is this a turning point or a pause? A correction or a rebrand? A lesson learned or a lesson deferred? The franchise keeps moving, yet the rules feel unsettled. And unsettled systems always look stable right before they repeat the pattern with a new name. This part turns the camera toward you, without blame. You did not cause this. You participated in a system designed to reward reaction. Extremes get clicks because extremes trigger feeling. Calm exits feel boring because they deny release. Drama trained expectations. Silence now feels suspicious because noise once explained everything. Think about your own viewing habits. Clips get shared when voices rise. Recaps trend when someone snaps. Algorithms notice. Networks notice faster. Over time, the show teaches you what matters. Loud equals important. Quiet equals nothing. That training sticks. So when someone leaves without spectacle, it feels wrong. Where is the fight? Where is the confession? Where is the reunion moment? Absence frustrates investment. You gave time. You expect payoff. That expectation makes silence feel like deception rather than boundary. If calm feels empty and chaos feels complete, ask who taught you to feel satisfied only by explosions. Here is a practical shift. Watch behavior, not volume. Notice who gains airtime after conflict. Notice who disappears after restraint. Track incentives. When edits lean hard on reaction, ask why. When stories vanish, ask what risk might sit underneath. Watching smarter does not mean watching less. It means watching differently. You can enjoy the mess while staying aware of how mess gets monetized. You can hold sympathy for people without turning volatility into applause. That awareness changes how systems respond over time. Counterpoint matters. Reality TV exists to entertain. Expecting ethics from a franchise built on spectacle feels naive. Yet viewers still shape outcomes. Attention guides budgets. Engagement signals demand. What you reward becomes the next season's blueprint. Silence also deserves a reframe. Silence does not always hide wrongdoing. Sometimes it protects healing. Sometimes it blocks exploitation. Sometimes it signals legal limits. Treating every quiet exit as guilt hands power back to the loudest voice. This story lingers because it denies closure. No farewell, no wrap-up, no clean explanation. That denial forces reflection. It asks whether endings need to perform for us to feel real. The unresolved question remains. If this line exists, someone else stands near it. Another couple pushing intensity. Another storyline writing chaos. Another moment where silence might replace spectacle. Who is next to test the boundary? Two paths crossed without meeting again. One moved quietly out of frame. The other burned bright until the system pulled back. Put together, they tell one story without asking you to pick sides. Michael's exit stayed private. Distance replaced performance. Silence replaced reaction. If reports hold, a new marriage formed away from cameras. That choice closed a chapter without spectacle. It protected a future by refusing to feed the past. Angela's arc stayed loud. Years of escalation paid in attention until attention carried risk. When the set stopped, the tone shifted. Procedures replaced story beats. Access narrowed. Distance followed. The noise did not end with a victory. It ended with separation. Quiet exit versus loud collapse sounds like a verdict. It is not. There are no winners here. Only consequences shaped by incentives. One path traded visibility for control. The other learned how fast tolerance turns into enforcement once risk arrives. This matters because the lesson sits upstream. Systems reward what keeps people watching. People adapt to rewards. When adaptation crosses limits, systems protect themselves. The fallout lands on the person closest to the blast. Blame feels easy. Responsibility feels accurate. Hold this truth. The machine does not care who feels right. It cares who reduces risk. Reframe the story as a warning, not a takedown, not a morality play. A caution about performance traps. A reminder that silence can be an exit strategy. A signal that escalation works until it does not. There is empathy on both sides without excuses. Viewers wanted closure. Cast members wanted relevance. Producers wanted control. Lawyers wanted containment. Those wants collided. The result looks messy because the incentives were. What stays unresolved is not who deserved what. It is whether the lesson sticks. Will boundaries hold when the next viral moment spikes numbers? Will restraint get rewarded before risk forces change? Will silence be allowed without suspicion? The franchise moves on. It always does. New couples step in. Old patterns tempt returns. The line remains. Pressure builds again. Someone will test it. And when the noise fades without explanation, listen closely. Another story is ending off-screen. Another silence is doing the work. Another line is about to snap. In the next video, we follow the clues around another couple pushing intensity, another absence no one wants to explain, and the same system deciding how much chaos it can afford this time.